Hey guys, Andrew McFarland here from StartAJuiceBar.com. Hope you're feeling amazing. And today I want to talk about wholesaling your juice. Should you wholesale your juice? Is it a good idea? Are there things you need to think about? We're going to talk about all of this in this video. And first I want to start by just saying thank you to everybody who's pressed the like button, who's been liking the content, who's subscribed to the channel. If you guys don't know, if you want to get notifications for when the videos are posted on YouTube, you can ring that notification bell and you'll get alerted. So without further ado, let's dive in. Let's talk about wholesaling. As you've probably heard me say in other videos, when you're in food service, you are in the low margin, high volume business, meaning that you don't make a ton of money off of each sale. And so in order to make more money, you have to sell a lot of juice. So there are situations, in my perspective, where it makes sense to wholesale, and then there's situations where it really doesn't make sense. And a lot of you guys out there who are thinking about wholesaling, not everybody, but a lot of you, it may be premature. So let me explain a little bit. What I find is that new and prospective juice business owners get really excited by the idea that anybody would want to buy something from them. You know, there's a local yoga studio and they tell you, oh, it would be great, you should bring your juice to our store. We'd be happy to put it in a refrigerator, we can sell that. Great. Now, the bad news is, like I said before, is you are in the high volume, low margin business. If you don't find that you are going to get a lot of accounts to sell a lot of juice, could be a problem, right? Because you really are going to be losing even more money, meaning you're reducing your margin even more when you begin to wholesale. Unless that retailer is able to add an extra dollar to your already standard price for your product, then you are going to be in an issue where you are going to make even less money. So you really got to think about that when it comes to wholesaling. Are you going to hit that threshold of volume for it to make sense? Now, if you're going to get an account with a company like Whole Foods, or maybe there's some other big supermarket in your area that's going to increase the volume of your sales dramatically, then at that point maybe you consider it. But the infrastructure that you need to provide juice for those kinds of vendors is quite significant. You're going to need a lot of equipment and a lot of employees because you're going to need to produce a lot of volume of juice. And so this is why I said in the beginning, this applies to most of you, where I feel that even if you're in a situation where you have a juice bar, we've seen clients who've got juice bars and they haven't maximized the sales in their particular store, but they're thinking about wholesaling. Now, in our perspective, it's not a good idea because you are going to make more money from retailing your own product, right, than if you start wholesaling elsewhere. You want people to come into your store because of that extra 30% margin that you're going to get, instead of having to take a price cut from other vendors. And so most people never really reach the volume of sales to justify wholesaling, but it's really easy to get excited, like I said, by the idea that someone else wants to carry your juice. Now, there are also a lot of things that you got to think about in terms of the health department. If you are not selling product in your own store, then there are other things that you might have to do. You might have to HPP your juice. You might have to pasteurize your juice, right? There's other requirements when you're not selling juices in your own store. So what's the solution around this? And what's something that I would say it might be worth considering? If you are going to get to the place where you're going to sell your product in other places that are not technically your own brick and mortar storefront, you could partner with these companies, juice bars, gyms, etc., and have little pop-up shops where you're going to have to do a little bit of a build out, but you become partners where it actually is on paper considered one of your own storefronts. And so maybe you pay them rent as opposed to wholesaling the product, or maybe you pay them rent and cut them in on a portion of the sales for allowing you to be in that location if it is a good location. But what's the other thing that I haven't spoken about yet that is really powerful to consider about this sort of approach? It is that a lot of times when you're wholesaling in a yoga studio, gym, etc., because selling your product isn't the primary business for that yoga studio owner or that gym owner, as much as they care to sell your juice, they don't live and die by it. So if your juice doesn't sell, it's not going to make or break their business. And so you'll find that it's a lot easier to sell product when you've got someone who is in a space, in another retail outlet, that can actually educate prospective clients on the value and of the products that you guys actually make. A lot easier. You'll sell more product. It will be worth it. So that's the other thing that you got to think about. Whether or not you wholesale, which I really don't think is a good idea unless you hit a certain volume because of the margin and because it's harder to sell your product. If you've saturated your market, you've got a few stores, and at that point you're like, okay, we're doing so much volume, let's see how we can get into even more spaces. Maybe you consider it at that stage, but most of you, like I said, are not at that place. It's preemptive to be even having that conversation and thinking about it. And I know this is on a lot of your minds, which is why I'm bringing it up, because I have a lot of conversations with prospective clients, and this is something that comes up, and I want to just get you guys to the place where you really understand, do the math. Before you take on anything in expanding your business, just do the math. How many units can you sell that's realistic? What's your margin going to be? And then how much labor is it going to take? What's your infrastructure cost in order to produce that? You'll find that most of the time it's not going to be very inspiring. So work on selling your own juice in your own storefront, direct to consumer. Then if you can get to the place where you can open up, partner with these gyms, these yoga studios or other outlets, and then get to the place where you can have a store inside of their store, then maybe that might make some sense, okay? So I hope this helps give you guys clarity once again. I hope I also am not bursting anybody's bubble, but I think it's important that we all have just a sense of reality, because there's ways to grow a business that's smart, and there's ways that is less than that. And I don't want you guys to be in a place where you work for the next 2 years and find out you're not much further along than you were when you began. We want to make real progress. Someone said something interesting recently, and they were talking about someone they spoke to who said, I've been in business for 20 years. And he said, no, you've actually been in the same business, or you've been in business for 1 year, but you've just repeated that 1 year 20 times. You actually haven't grown. And so it's important to be intelligent and strategic in how we grow, so that we're not repeating bad habits, bad patterns that are not really ultimately getting us to where we want to be, which is to have a lucrative business that's having a lot of impact. And so for those of you who like the video, press the like button. If you're new to the channel and you want to subscribe, I invite you to subscribe. And if you have any questions or comments, you know where it goes. And if you're not following us on Instagram, I invite you to follow us. It's at StartAJuiceBar, and we'll see you really soon.